taste. Busting makes me feel good.
Hey everybody, welcome to Blockbusting, the podcast where we love to hate movies. I'm your host Jay Light. Joining me today, all the way from Atlanta, it's Ian Aber.
Hello.
Hello.
It's me, all the way from Atlanta.
What is this background you just put on? I can't even.
I don't know. Did it do it?
A little bit.
Yeah. I do have a green screen kind of behind me, and sometimes I'll put up like something in that, just like so it looks like.
I like you just put like a portal of whatever the Geostorm satellite was.
Oh, was it?
Might be, I feel like that
was something
might be
from outer space. Yeah.
Yeah. Ian and I just did Ian's podcast last week, and we were talking about movies on there. And when I told you I wanted to have you on my show, I had no idea what to expect because you said you hated a lot of movies. And
yeah, I'm not a fan of the genre.
In general, you're just not.
Yeah, they're too long most of the time. You know what I mean? It's like, get on with it.
What's your favorite movie?
Oof, that's a tough one. I like the last 20 minutes of Legally Blonde a lot.
Okay.
The rest of the movie, not so much.
I've never seen Legally Blonde.
Like the courtroom scene, in Legally Blonde is like one of my favorite things to watch.
Okay.
I like movies. I mean, like, like I've watched. I don't know, what's a movie that people think is good.
The Godfather.
I've tried with The Godfather. Actually, we used The Godfather, me and another comedian, as a measure of time for a show that we were on that was like 3 hours long. And I was like, text me when I forget what it was, when Frodo dies or something. I forget what the reference was. Fredo. Oh yeah, there you go. Lord of the Rings, Godfather, it's all the same.
It's listen, I would much rather watch Godfather than Lord of the Rings. I'm not much of a fantasy human.
Yeah.
I know there's some people who think that's blasphemy, but I feel like you probably don't give a shit either way. So
I don't know. I don't like Tom Hanks, and people are like, "What? How dare you?" But yeah, I do like movies, but like I'm sort of at that point in my life now where it's like if I go to a movie in the movie theater with the air conditioning and like all being comfortable in the chair that leans back, if the movie's not amazing, I'm gonna fall asleep. And that's like the measure of whether a movie's good or not. If I stay awake through the whole thing, it's good. And if my husband has to wake me up 6 times because I'm snoring, then it's not a good movie.
Yeah, that's happened to me when I watched Blade Runner for the first time. I fell asleep, and then for the second and third times, I also fell asleep. And I was like, "Is this movie as good as people say it is?" Because I shouldn't be falling asleep as much. Yeah,
the original. I like the original. I just rewatched the whatever the sequel was.
Blade Runner 2049.
So god awful.
Also fell asleep in that.
Yeah, it's terrible. This is terrible. I saw the first one in the movie theater with my grandmother was Chilean. And we would always convince her to take us to movies that were like R-rated.
Yeah.
She didn't know what R-rated meant. So the movies I remember her taking us to were like Blade Runner and the original theatrical release of the musical Hair, which has like at least 6 dicks in the movie. It's just all sex and drugs. And then she just watch it and never say it. She never commented on any of it. But I remember being like maybe 7 years old watching Blade Runner and being like, I shouldn't be watching this. This doesn't feel right.
I had when I was like I think 12, maybe 11. I don't remember when it came out. Anchorman. I saw Anchorman. My grandma took me to Anchorman, and she fell asleep during it, and I was wide awake. And I was like, I'm so glad you're asleep for this, and I get to have this cultural moment without you, only as a facilitator.
Wow.
Well, the movie that you chose ultimately is a huge pile of shit called Geostorm, 2017 American science fiction disaster film, directed, co-written, and co-produced by Dean Devlin in his feature film directorial debut.
Yep, Dean, he's a triple threat right out of the gate.
I felt threatened every single moment of this movie. That's for fucking sure.
Can I just say that as a gay person, I like weather disaster movies are my favorite subgenre of all kinds of like disaster movies, because gays get blamed, like, your anal sex caused hurricanes according to Christians or whatever. So like a fantasy of mine is like a movie where like gays really actually control the weather and destroy the planet. And so like I had high hopes going into Geostorm it was going to be a story of ex-lovers working to save the planet or something. You know what I'm saying? Like gays finally getting to control the weather for real.
Not the case, though. We get stuck with Gerard Butler and Jim Sturgis playing the least convincing brothers of all time.
Oh, but they're from the UK, but they lost their accents, which I thought was a nice touch, considering that they're both they're both from the UK and they're both doing fucking shitty American accents. And why does Jim Sturgis always have the same fucking haircut in every movie? Is that the only haircut he can have? Like, he sort of has. So. It's sort of a Jim from The Office. It's like almost. It's like he's like, Jim all grown up, but it's still like a little bit of a bang and a little bit of like a flip in the back.
Yeah, he's got it's a little floppiness going on, just enough for you to be like he's got some sort of a boyish charm going on. But I will say straight up, I mean, I can appreciate movies like this sometimes where they're like overt B movies, grand spectacle, crazy special effects, all sorts of stuff. You know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my all-time favorite movies is Snakes on a Plane, which I think is like one of the perfect encapsulations of what a great B movie can be.
I liked the lead up to that movie, like where it introduces all the characters and their flaw. You know what I mean? Like I love that in a movie where it's all like, oh, okay, this guy's the scumbag, and this person's the neurotic, and I love that.
But the problem is this movie, at least for me, I felt took the trappings of what could have been a fun B movie, and then none of the actors or the screenwriting or the directing lent itself to have the fun that it could have had. Like the only person who seemed like she knew exactly what kind of movie she was in was Zazie Beetz.
Yeah.
As the millennial tech person.
Yeah, as Dana, I not only do I know computers, I can do anything with computers. I always like a character like that in a movie. You know what I mean? Like not only and also like a person like that in a low position. You know what I mean? Like she's just working a cube in the State Department, but when activated, she's a complete genius who can move the plot along as quickly as possible. Yeah, she's the only one. Like when she says to one of the brothers, like, I don't have time to work on your daddy issues. It's like, yeah, exactly. Like, is this a disaster movie or is this a movie about brothers? Is it, you know what I mean? Like, it can't decide which one it wants to be. And it's not. There's a couple funny lines in the movie. There's only one intentional funny line, I think, when the president says marry her after the lady. Oh yeah, the Secret Service lady turns the car around, drives it backwards at 100 miles an hour, and shoots somebody dead in the car that's chasing them. Because that's a thing. I also love like their version of Orlando that has these double-decker highways for like miles. I mean, I know it's the future or whatever, but and it's just barely the future, isn't it? It's like the only thing futuristic is the electric motors. And the little hologram phone things that they have for a couple times in the movie. Yeah, the way the movie opens, it starts out with this narration from who we later find out is the lead character Jake Lawson, played by Gerard Butler, who's a fucking climate scientist. Some sort of crazy bad boy, and bad boy, noted bad boy. He's an adult Jake, and I don't know if you've ever met a comic out here named Rick Ingram, but he has this bit about how you can never trust an adult Jake, and Gerard Butler in this movie is the perfect encapsulation of like a shitty adult Jake. Yeah. And you don't do that intro exposition enough credit. Like it's whispered. So the movie starts with a young girl whispering, they thought it would be okay to mess with nature or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like this really like, I mean, it sets everything up, and they've got all the planet was dying, and they show dead bodies and extreme weather.
2 million people in Madrid. It froze a donkey.
That's the other thing. Like fucking Manhattan's gone, Paris is gone. No one mentions that through the whole. No one stops and goes, "I miss Paris." Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to live in, like, everyone's like too cool in that world after like major cities have been destroyed by climate change in 2019, which was 2 years ago. Yeah. Ugh.
So it takes place 3 years after that. So we got about a year until it's Geostorm City here in the regular timeline.
Oh, did I mention that I lost my virginity in a geostorm? Does that help this movie?
You guys really do control the weather. What do you know?
Right.
So then it starts. So Gerard Butler like gets called in front of a Senate committee in the least Senate-looking building that I think I've ever seen in the movie.
I think that was like the lobby of a bank that they had set up some tables in.
Yeah.
And I liked how he showed up like all disheveled, and then they like show him like walking in, putting on his tie. Like he doesn't give a fuck.
The tie that he got from the security guard.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't give a fuck. Oh yeah, the security guard too, being like, "Oh, you're Jake. Oh, you're the guy.
You're the Jake."
And we haven't even talked about that. The whole movie's about a big weather system that's been invented by man to stop the extreme weather that's been created by pollution or whatever. And then they call it Dutch Boy. That's the name of this big complicated, because of like the Dutch boy sticking the finger in the freaking whatever
in the dam. To stop the water from coming out.
Yeah, and so they say Dutch Boy. They should have called the movie Dutch Boy. They
should have called the movie Dutch Boy. The Geostorm takes. The Geostorm doesn't even happen.
It doesn't happen. Yeah, it's like waiting for Godot, waiting for Geostorm, and never fucking shows up. Nope.
Fucking. So I took a bunch of notes during this movie, and then I just had to stop taking notes because I was like, I can't even try to rationalize this.
It's going to take you out of the Geostorm if you're taking notes. Yeah.
Nobody knows how to modulate their volume correctly in this movie. Everybody's either whispering or screaming. Especially, it starts out right out of the gate with the Senate hearing when Gerard Butler and Richard Schiff from The West Wing just start yelling at each other in a bank lobby.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, who put this guy in charge of anything? If he can't even like sit through a Senate hearing, I mean, like he was in there for 2 minutes and he fucking lost his cool. Yeah, that's the guy I want running the space weapon. You know what I mean? Oh, put Jake in charge of it. You know, he's cool headed. He won't overreact.
He's a little. It's ironic that the guy who's supposed to control the weather can't control his emotions. They need a Dutch boy for his brain.
Absolutely. And then they even say that they're like, one of the things that the Richard Schiff character is like, and you punched one of our inspectors in the face. And then the Gerard Jake character is like, oh yeah, he was about to touch something that would have killed him. I saved his life by punching him in the face. And that's like that character in a nutshell to me. Is like that, you know what I mean? Like you could have just said, hey, look out. No. Let me punch you in the face real quick.
But the other thing is, so this movie sort of tries to set up a couple of different themes. Like, obviously, one of the big themes is climate change and how bad it is.
Yeah.
But the other thing that really gets set up early on is at the Senate hearing when Richard Schiff is like, you turned it on. You turned on the Dutch boy before we gave you authorization to do so. And we hate you for that. So we got to take you off the project. So it also sets up like you're supposed to hate climate change, but also you're supposed to hate the government.
Yeah, absolutely. The inept American government, the corrupt from the inside, being ate up from the inside American government. I would think that people could argue that Geostorm is nothing but Chinese propaganda. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the amount of time that they took to destroy Tokyo. That's suspect,
and Hong Kong.
Well, Hong Kong, yeah, that was pretty good. But
it's probably an easier way. I mean, they'd rather not deal with Hong Kong the way it is now.
That's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Oh my god, that kind of reinforces the idea.
Well, yeah, because they have like half of the movie, or not half of the movie, half of Dutch Boy apparently is controlled by China.
Yeah,
and but they never bring up China at all, except for the one scene that happens in Shanghai, and then there's the guy in Hong Kong who's Chang Long.
Yeah,
and he narrowly escapes a volcano, which is not a weather phenomenon.
Well, what about the space laser at the end in Moscow?
Oh,
it's
yeah,
just a straight up death beam. You know, like it's like what kind of weather is that? Oh, heat ray.
They had literally, it's a heat ray, and then there's a freeze ray in Rio de Janeiro that's literally like going so fast it's freezing birds out of the air, and they almost hit this lady.
Did she survive? Do we know whether she survives or not?
Because you know, like see her again.
They keep doing they do the disaster in City X, and then they focus on one person that we're supposed to identify with as the in the movie, like this is the character that we're now going to empathize with, and she like made it she outran the wave, the freeze ray, the plane that fell out of the sky, and then she she gets to a dead end and like turns around, and we don't see whether she survives or not. But then they have the kid in India and his dog, and I was like, they better not kill this fucking dog. I swear, man. I was like, when I watched the movie originally, I was like screaming, not the dog. They're not going to kill a dog in this movie. I mean,
if they killed the dog, this movie would have gone over the edge. Completely irredeemable. But they didn't kill the dog.
I was expecting the daughter to sneak into the space station.
Me
so like
too.
The way that with the original, right? I feel like that she just disappeared in Act 2, and I guess maybe because I just saw the King Kong versus Godzilla, and all the King Kong, both of the original movies, they have like a young female lead who's like the monster's best friend. Do you know what I'm saying? And I thought, well, okay, she's not the monster's best friend. She's the monster's daughter. So she's going to be in the whole movie, all the way through. But yeah, she just disappeared in Act 2, and then they show her in Act 3 just being, crying, and I love my daddy.
Yeah,
we have a complicated relationship.
He's not in Orlando in the exploding space. He's there on the exploding space station.
That was my favorite part. Like just the idea of anything blowing up in Orlando like that. Like it's the Democratic National Convention, and one lightning bolt strikes the whatever conference center, and the entire thing explodes. Like the whole lightning bolt thing exploding Orlando scene was my favorite part of the whole movie.
And that's the thing, it's like scenes like that, I'm like, great. I love the spectacle of some shit like that.
Yeah,
I even loved like the first time you see after Dutch Boy starts to go a little awry, and they go to that scene in Afghanistan in the frozen village where they they go touch a guy's hand and it falls off because they've been frozen solid. I'm like, okay, we're going somewhere here, maybe. Yeah. But then like Jim Sturgis is god awful the whole movie, and Gerard Butler is like fine.
I only know him from Jim Sturgis from Across the Universe. It's the only other movie I've ever seen him in.
Same.
And I don't think he was good in that. So is he just not a good actor? You know what I mean? Like I don't know him well enough.
I mean, he works, and I'm looking at his Instagram, not his Instagram, his Wikipedia page right now, and he has he's worked a bunch. Yeah. But
I thought the person who did the most heavy lifting acting wise was the daughter. Like when she was like the scene where he was leaving, and she was like, whatever, you don't love me or whatever she was saying. She did a good job. And then the worst actor in the entire movie, besides Gerard Butler as a scientist, just come on, would have to be Andy Garcia as the president, because he was doing like an Al Pacino impersonation through the whole fucking movie. And when he goes, I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
It's great. As he's as they get Ed Harris in a headlock at the end of the movie. Ed Harris, I love Ed Harris, but he also is like phoning it in this movie.
Oh yeah. Well, and you know that like when you see Ed Harris, when they finally cut to introduce his character, he's the villain of the whole. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like Ed Harris is like the modern version of like a Gene Hackman or a Donald Sutherland character. You know what I'm saying? You can't just have Gene Hackman in a movie without him being the fucking, you know what I mean? Like, right. So it's like you put Ed Harris, you cut to Ed Harris. I'm never going to believe it's Andy Garcia is the villain. I'm always going to be thinking it's Ed Harris. Always. You need
old man with gravitas who shouldn't be in a movie. That's going to be the villain of the whole movie.
He's basically playing Christoph from fucking Truman Show, but now with the space laser. He's like, why not play God? Isn't making a weather laser?
Is it genocide or is it a good idea? And that's the other big problem I had with the movie is that I think if you have a villain in a movie who doesn't have some sort of likable or kind of redeemable quality, then I just can't get behind enjoying watching them do what they do.
Well, but I mean, how can you redeem? So Ed Harris is like, oh, we're going to remake the world by attacking all of our enemies. People of color. You know what I mean? It's like basically
the global South.
Besides Russia, it's basically all people of color. You know what I mean? It's just like everywhere we see attacked is like, oh, not white people. Okay, gotcha. Wink, wink. And Russia, that's what you get for not being cool white people or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, Russians are low tier white people. You're getting a fucking talking to.
Yeah, it's like a white supremacist. If maybe it was more overtly that, then this movie would have been more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like if he had just been like this crazy racist, like head of the KKK who takes over the weather machine, everyone would watch this movie and be like, this is amazing. Do you know?
Because that's the thing, like his motivation doesn't feel, maybe likable is not the right word, but his motivation doesn't feel like something that I could identify with why he's doing what he's doing. Like, okay, the person who I immediately thought of, or, the character who I immediately thought of as like a good analog, what he could be, was Thanos.
Yeah.
Thanos also wants to commit genocide.
Yeah.
But he has a reason for it because he's got his backstory about his race being slaughtered.
Yeah.
So of course he wants to try and do the snap and has his own fucked up reasoning, which is fucked up, but it's reasoning.
But what they did with Thanos is that they make it arbitrary. So there's no like genocide and extinction, and you know what I'm saying? So it's like just half of everybody, just whoever, at least I really felt like they did that in the movies. I think maybe it was more implied in the comic books in the original story that, that it was to get rid of certain planets and certain people and stuff. But I think that if there was more of that, why he wanted that, I could hate him as a villain more, and I could root for the heroes of the movie.
I guess. Other aspects of this movie that I feel are important to bring up is nobody knows how to meet anybody in this movie. Like every time we have a scene where a character is introduced to other characters in the movie, it's the most awkward scenes imaginable, particularly the scene where Jim Sturgis meets the niece. When sort of meets the niece, like just, they haven't seen each other in a long time.
Yeah.
And then also when Gerard Butler goes onto the space station and meets all of the scientists from the International
crew?
Committee.
God, I know. What was that scene about? I think it was just to reinforce like how toxic and how he shouldn't be in charge of anything. That he immediately has an antagonistic relationship with every single person in the room, like just by glance. Like they walk in and immediately are all on each other. But then, like the person he had the most issue with in that conversation ends up being the bad guy, one of the bad guys along the way. So it's like sort of telegraph that.
That's the other thing too. It's like, first of all, you telegraph so openly that guy's going to be a piece of shit and cause problems from the antagonist point of view later on. But then also you have the German lady who's in charge of the space station who didn't do her own due diligence and being like, hey, here's a briefing on Gerard Butler who invented the fucking Dutch boy.
Yeah,
he's coming back.
That they're surprised that it's him. Oh, you're that guy? Oh, that's why we're sitting in this room? Yeah.
Wait, what's the patch on your chest say? Oh, it's that guy's first initial and last name? Oh, that makes a lot of sense now. I was wondering, I thought you stole that off his corpse.
So I will say that when I first watched this movie, that I thought that him and the German lady had a totally platonic relationship. So there was no, because what would have been so easy in a movie like that is that they would have introduced her and then they used to fuck. You know what I mean? And they didn't do that. So it was like they really didn't know each other.
Yes.
And then they just had a platonic relationship. And then maybe at the end there was a long hug. So when I watched it this time, I felt like maybe there was a little bit of telegraphing that they would then go on to have. But that's very rare for a straight man and a straight woman to have like to go through a movie like this and not end up in a
sexual
relationship.
tension.
Yeah. It was refreshing. Like he doesn't want to fuck her. I love that. One thing I liked about his character.
I also really like that. I love anybody who's being an asexual-ish kind of scientist.
Yeah.
And it's good enough for me.
would have been great if she like flirted with him and he was like, I don't have time. Did you not Geostorm? Have you not heard about the Geostorm?
The Geostorm's happening in an hour and a half, lady.
But meanwhile, his brother and the FBI lady, way too much of that. There was way too much of their, yeah. By the end, I was just like, we get it. Yeah, okay, you're fucking. We get it.
But that's the thing. Even the moments like that part where they were on this chase, where they're in the electric car and the president's in the back of it, and he sees her like turn around and shoot the other car, and then he's like, wait, you guys are a thing? What?
Right? Like the president's like keeping up with that shit. But also that they were being chased by like a Mercedes in that electric car.
Yes.
So it's like the horsepower in that Mercedes versus this, I guess, futuristic electric car that might go, more than I don't know. I was watching that the whole time thinking, okay, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
there's no like, yeah, you can't. I don't know. It's just insanity.
The movie, as I learned after watching it, so part of why I think this movie is so bad is obviously it went through some reshoots, and reshoots are generally never good for a movie in terms of making it good in the end. It was initially directed, and Dean Devlin still has director credit. But Dean Devlin was it was his first movie, and he produced a lot of movies in the 90s and early 2000s, including Independence Day, Godzilla. He wrote both of Stargate. He also wrote
really? He wrote Stargate?
He wrote Stargate.
Wow. That's interesting.
And then he also produced The Patriot, Eight-Legged Freaks, Cellular, and Flyboys. Okay. And then this was his directorial debut. And I think this is proof that sometimes the people who are like the money people and the ideas people are not the people who should be behind the camera also.
Right.
Like, just because you have a lot of money to throw at something does not necessarily mean that you can make good ideas happen with your money.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what? I read the thing about the reshoots, and that not only did they reshoot, they introduced new characters.
Yes.
So they reshot, and that, to me, it's one thing to reshoot. It's another thing to be like, okay, we need another person. And so who did they add? That's what I want to know. Who did they add? What character was like the extra one that we got that was special? Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to investigate now because they brought in Jerry Bruckheimer, which, like, if you're going to make an action spectacle, Bruckheimer is one of the go-to guys who you want to bring in as your reshoot producer.
Yeah.
But let's see. This is the Hollywood Reporter. Oh, come on. A character played by Viking star Catherine. New characters, including a female scientist, have been added. So maybe Zazie Beetz was added as the
female scientist.
It's either, my guess is either, I mean, I'm looking at the cast of female scientists. Zazie Beetz, who's a cybersecurity expert, which is kind of science.
Yeah.
The Nigerian astronaut, Eni Adisa, or the German astronaut, who it would be inconceivable to me for them to add her.
There was also that lady with bangs who had like 3 lines in the movie. And the first one was like, the president's on the phone. And she was all bug-eyed. I just remember she came in, she's like, oh, we have a communication. Who's it from? The president. She did it kind of like.
Now that's got reshoots written all over.
But then later she also she was like, the systems aren't coming online. Well, have you tried pressing the on switch? Yes, I have. Like she had a great, like everything she delivered was sort of the same way. And I loved it. And I also love the old fat guy who was like, I think your brother's still on the station.
Oh yeah, the guy in the in NASA Mission Control who just does a lot of this.
He was amazing. He reminded me of the gay guy from Airplane. I was like, if they had just made him a little gayer. So I don't think he was written gay, but I think he was played gay, maybe.
Maybe.
That's the other thing too. Is like, this movie would have been so much better if Gerard Butler and Jim Sturgis were like gay lovers who had invented this weather machine to finally like gay people control the weather. Mm-hmm. And then they broke up. And then like, because Ed Harris, the evil straight person who's going to destroy the world and blame it on the gays.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And then
he's also an overt bigot. Then we can make that a full plot point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's like, it's like them and all their people of color friends and a lot of supporting women who are really smart and capable save the day. That everyone would love that. You know what I'm saying? Like that would be Why can't they make that movie? Why is that?
I think it would have been it would have been a so much better movie that way, because then you also get to take out the shitty, like, overtly masculine elements that Jim Sturgis brings, where he like is lying to Zazie Beetz about like, yo, no, I'm not seeing anybody. Come on, maybe we fuck later on, huh?
Yeah.
What do you think there?
And he did seem very cavalier about like involving her and endangering her, as he uncovers this conspiracy at the highest levels of government. Did he pay her extra? Did he Venmo her something? Like, does he even thank her? Does she get a thank you at any point?
No, she gives herself a standing ovation next to her colleagues, who, by the way, she wasn't supposed to tell anybody. So why did she tell all these people?
Yeah.
She broke her own code.
Yeah.
Anyway,
this movie, she's a hacker, so breaking codes her how she lives. You know what I'm saying?
Hey. Yeah, I think if people who are listening to this podcast want to make a disaster movie, make your lead characters gay and have them control the weather, and you're going to go straight into Ian's heart, and frankly straight into mine, because it'll be way better.
I'm just going to write that movie. I'm just going to write my own, like, you know what I mean? Stop waiting for it to be created and just write my own gay disaster film.
I mean, if it was the gay version of this movie, it would have been called Dutch Boy. They wouldn't have called it Geostorm.
Right. And I wonder if Greta, is it Greta Thunberg?
Thunberg? Yeah.
So I wonder, like, so you think about the young girl whispering the exposition at the beginning and end of the movie, because like the movie ends with the same little girl, we're going to be okay. And we're living as one people. So it's a real socialist, anti-nationalist message at the very end, like that, oh yes, let's dissolve all the national governments and just live, like the one world order, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they overtly have stuff at the DNC convention in the movie that's like one world.
Yeah.
It's stuff. I'm like, also, are they the enemy in this movie too? What's happening?
I mean, it's a very weird. But then I wonder if somebody like a Greta Thunberg maybe watched this movie. How old was she? Like 13 or something? So this movie came out 4 years. So she maybe watched this movie when she was 7 or 8 and gone, oh, if I don't do something, the Geostorm's going to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because I kept thinking that she would be perfect in this movie.
She would be.
She could have been the daughter.
Yeah.
Things would have gotten done a lot faster if she'd been the daughter, I think.
Well, she would also feel weird about flying into space, though. So
because of the
carbon emissions,
yeah. I did think that was a very strange. It's like here are all these electric engines, but meanwhile we see how many shuttles shot into space? At least 6,
and they just fly. Gerard Butler gets a whole shuttle to himself.
That too was crazy. Yeah, and then they're talking to him. So he like when he flies into space that first time, all his like the faces he makes. Like writing the G's, like that was amazing. Such good acting. But then when he finally gets to be weightless and he takes off you've been to space, bitch. Like you know what I mean? Like,
why are you still in wonder every time you go?
I feel like that scene was all like, like the message was, this is a man who's more comfortable in space than he is on Earth. You know what I mean? Yeah, and I don't know.
There are other better movies where that exists. Like Ad Astra is like that, and I mean, Ad Astra is also a movie about a man with daddy issues, played by Brad Pitt.
God, Jesus Christ, get on with it.
But
I watched that movie and I was just like, nobody likes their dad. Jeez.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt watching it. I was like, all right, look, this is a very sad space movie about somebody who hates their dad, but been there. All right, I didn't have to go to fucking Mars to figure that out. All right.
Who was that? Tommy Lee Jones?
Tommy Lee Jones. Yeah, also perfectly cast though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like if they try to cast Tommy Lee Jones as someone likable, forget it. Like that's
Tommy Lee Jones should be more villains. He always winds up being like a sort of somebody who you're supposed to kind of root for a little bit. He's like just the cantankerous protagonist, like in No Country for Old Men and Men in Black and stuff.
Yeah,
I would love more chances for him to be a villain. It'd be great.
Well, I mean, he was the greatest villain in the Batman movies. Two-Face, Batman Forever is the best Batman. It's the one with the Riddler and
I think Batman and Robin's better than Batman Forever.
how get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. How so? How so, Jay?
I think that Joel Schumacher really got to let just all of his impulses about how to make a Batman movie. He really let him ride. Finally,
all of his negative impulses. So you like Uma Thurman doing Tallulah Bankhead doing Poison Ivy? Is that because that's what she's fucking? I mean, if you, I don't know if you're familiar with Tallulah Bankhead.
I'm not.
Watch any clip of her speaking, and then watch a clip of her doing Poison Ivy, and I swear to God, it's like she just was like, "I'm going to do it like Tallulah Bankhead," and it's like, all right. And I don't hate that movie. I do. I think I don't like Arnold. Arnold is just it's too much for me. In
too much cheese. Too many ice puns.
Yeah, he's too corny. But I like the Forever one because it was like they had the psychiatrist whose name was Chase Meridian, and so I mean one of the dumbest fucking
sounds like a credit card.
And then her, I know, right? And then her like her specialty was like dual personalities, and then the villain ends up being Two-Face. I'm like, when you're that on the nose, I just can't. I just love it. It's just like, oh yeah, that. Like, yeah, exactly. Because you just imagine the people writing it like high-fiving each other. And, oh, you know what? We'll name her is Chase Meridian. You know, like Meridian, like the two sides of the brain. Oh, my God. Why didn't I think of that? You know, like I just.
Oh, my God. Well, maybe I should rewatch Batman Forever and give it another chance because I did an episode about Batman Forever. I've covered almost every single Batman movie on this show over the course of the time doing it. I think the only ones that haven't come up is the original. Like
1968.
Well, that one, and then also the first Tim Burton one.
Oh, the first Tim Burton one there's a lot there. Oh, just Jerry Hall playing that character that he like scrapes her face up, and then like her, and then the Prince soundtrack. I mean, yeah, there's a lot there. Oh, that's one of my favorite movies in general. I've watched that a few times over the years.
I've never seen it. So
never seen the original Batman.
Never seen the original Batman.
You've seen Batman Returns? Have you seen
Batman Returns?
That one's pretty good too.
Seen Batman Returns. Every other one I've seen.
Yeah,
except for those two. The original.
I like it. I always thought Michael Keaton did a pretty good job.
I liked Michael Keaton as as Batman Returns Batman.
Yeah,
he does it right.
Yeah, the costume looks ridiculous. Like he can't even move his neck. Like it's like a.
Yeah, but hey, they hadn't had quite the advancements that they have now.
So who is, of all the Batmans, who is your favorite Batman?
It's Christian Bale.
Okay. And how do you feel about the one coming out?
Pattinson? I'm really excited. Robert Pattinson is a really good actor. The trailers look great. And and I've been a Robert Pattinson. I flipped on him ever since I saw Good Time for the first time.
Okay.
I think he's going to be an outstanding Batman. I'm really intrigued. What about you?
I don't know. I've only ever seen like 18 minutes of Twilight. And I couldn't the makeup, whoever did the makeup in that movie should be talked to at least.
They should be launched into space to go fix.
Exactly. Something, dude. Just anything other than don't ever do makeup for. But I'm trying to think of any other movie I've seen him in. I don't think I've seen him in anything.
Oh, can I just point out before we wrap up the other super unbelievable part of this movie, having done video conferencing for a year now.
Yeah.
There's no way that that Jim Sturgis is going to be looking at the camera instead of looking at the monitor where his brother's face actually is every time they video conference.
Yeah.
Totally unbelievable.
Well, what if he's also in a room where his brother is a giant hologram on the wall? Well, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like they never.
If he was, why didn't they show the other side?
They never show that. Yeah, exactly. I liked how they both were like end transmission, like like being a bitch, like I've had what I gotta say, end transmission, and then that actually turns.
Yeah,
there wouldn't be a button. Do you know what I mean? Like just one like little click.
Hey, listen, Gerard Butler doesn't need authorization. He's just going to do what he wants to do himself. And that
did you notice the room that Gerard Butler was in to have those conferences? That the room to communicate, there were no seats. There was nowhere to sit. So if you were going to talk to somebody at the space station, you had to go in this empty room and stand there. You know, like
that must have been one of the reshoot locations because there's no reason for them to have come back on the other side unless they were shooting it in like a broom closet or an unused office somewhere where they're just like, all right, we can't get the reverse of this. Yeah. We have to get a super tight shot in you, Jim. I'm so sorry. Try to keep your accent afloat for at least the next 5 minutes.
Why couldn't they have just been British is what I don't understand. Do you know what I mean? Like they're both British and they were both doing the most hokey kind of like American, like Gerard Butler barely, like half everything says sounds British still, or Scottish or whatever he is. You know,
it's so ridiculous, man.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty. He has fallen so far from 300. Do you know what I mean?
Really
Not that he was a great actor in 300. That wasn't really the draw. You know, but I don't think I've ever seen him in anything worse than this. Surely there's probably something else out there. Maybe him. I've never seen him as a romantic lead, so maybe that would be.
Well, I had a girlfriend once who was a big fan of P.S. I Love You, and she made me watch that with her.
Oh, with Hilary Swank? Yeah. Oh, he's terrible in that.
He's so terrible in that.
Yeah.
So
She's terrible.
Doesn't have the chops. The whole movie's terrible.
Like, they have no chemistry whatsoever. Like, not. Like,
which is great, because he's dead, so it's all fine. It's all good. Worked out better for her anyway.
Right?
Well, Ian, this has been a delight, much better than the movie. So thank you for this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This is super fun.
Where can the listeners find you if they want to pitch you their gay disaster movies?
You can follow me at Aber Comedian. I'm Aber. I'm gay and look like this. So Aber Comedian. And my last name is Aber. So at Aber Comedian on Instagram. And you can follow me at America's Gay Christian Sweetheart. That leads you to everything I do.
And your podcast, Straight People.
Oh, yeah. I have a podcast called Straight People. It is the definitive podcast on straight culture, if there is such a thing. So,
and proof there is not. Don't worry.
There is not. Your episode was really fun, by the way. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for playing along.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
Awesome.
You can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram, jlightcomedy.com for all of the shows and stuff. If you like the show, please consider supporting on Patreon. And if you can't afford it, tell a friend. And that's good enough for me. Ian, thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
This has been Blockbusting. Go see something good for a change.